As I said earlier, welcome to day one of the Junior Academy 2021. It's the first day of the Junior Academy ever. You're all signed up today for Hannah's presentation. I'm hoping that this is going to move on for me. Try that. Perfect. Okay, so just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. Okay, I am asking you, and indeed I think it is in the paperwork or when you signed up to the workshop, it's narrated that your all-swimmers are asked to keep their camera on for the duration of the workshop. If you all keep your microphone muted unless you're asked to unmute for a conversation, that keeps the background noise to a minimum. If you've got any issues with your microphone, there's a chat function that you can use. And if your screen freezes at any time, can you please log off and log back on? That should hopefully unfreeze your screen. I've already gone through the naming yourselves correctly. We won't be using breakout rooms. I apologize. That's just this is just a standard slide for maybe other things. So just quickly, we'll introduce you. So our lead coach today is Jamie Ward. Some of you will know him. He's from East Lothian Swim Team. Jamie's, as well as coaching at East Lothian Swim Team, has been involved with national squads for a number of years now. Any of you who were involved with the DRP last year may well have met him through the workshops that were conducted for effectively Lark Hall, which is part of the West District DRP programme. As I've said, you've signed up for the workshop with Hannah Miley. Very excited to be listening to her this morning, and in a moment Jamie will introduce her. I've introduced myself and Katrina as team managers this morning. If there's any concerns you have throughout the workshop, please don't hesitate to message us. You can use the chat function for that, but just make sure that you're messaging just us, one of us rather than everyone. Okay, so I will come off of screen share now and pass over to Jamie, who will introduce you to Hannah. Over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jackie. Morning, swimmers. It's nice to see so many of you here on a Sunday morning, ready to better yourself and work on your swimming. Welcome to your first ever Junior Academy Day, the first ever Junior Academy Day. I'm here just to host and facilitate Hannah and introduce her. And it doesn't, it's a pretty easy job to introduce Hannah, if I'm totally honest. We could talk about, multiple medals, multiple Olympian, multiple Commonwealth Games athlete, but more than that, someone who gives back to Scottish swimming all the time. If you've ever been on squads before, you may have seen her speak. You may have even got to work with her at times. So my advice here is focus, take notes, ask questions, and make the absolute most of everything you can this morning. And I'll hand over to you, Hannah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the intro. And yeah, good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. So for this workshop, we're going to have a little look at puberty, periods, and performance. So being female, there are a lot of things that happen to our body as we grow up. There are about 5 stages within our life cycles, and it's all to do with our hormones. And each of these hormones elicit change in our body. So as athletes, how do we manage this? How do we get the most out of our bodies so that we can perform really well, we can be happy, and ultimately be healthy at the same time? So I'm going to go through a presentation with you guys. If at any point you do have any questions, feel free to direct message me, and at the end I can go through the questions. I won't read out the name as to who sent the questions, so it is a free open space. There's no silly questions. Feel free to ask whatever it is that you'd like to ask. But before we start, if it's okay, I'd actually like to ask you guys kind of like a myth or fact. So just to kind of get you guys thinking to see how well you know a little bit about the menstrual cycle and a little bit about you guys going through puberty just now. So in the chat box just now, for the one that's open to all, I want you to either write myth if you think, nah, that's not right, or fact if you think this is right. So I'm going to give you guys a statement, and you either say it's a myth or you say it's a fact. Okay? Thumbs up if you guys get that. Brilliant. Okay. So the first statement is you can't exercise whilst on your period. Myth or fact? Brilliant. Lots of people coming through saying myths. Awesome. So yeah, complete and utter myth. You can train whilst you're on your period. Presentation, we're going to go through the different strategies to help you guys and to show you that we can actually use our menstrual cycle and our period as our superpower. There are so many advantages for us to go through our cycle, and it's an amazing thing that we can go through. All right, so second statement. It's okay not to have a period, menstrual cycle, when you're pretty active. It's okay not to have a period or menstrual cycle when you're pretty active. Is that a myth or is that a fact? So I'll say that again. It's okay not to have a period. Ah, awesome. Okay, so a lot of people are saying fact for this. So it might be just the way that I've been wording it. So it's okay not to have a period when you're active it's a myth. So for you guys, if you do not have a period when you're doing lots of exercise, for me, I call that a red flag. So you should be having a regular cycle happening every month. And if at any point during because you're increasing your training, increasing the workload, if your period stops, for me, that's a little red flag. So it's not okay to not have a period, because for us, our period is actually a sign of health. So you want to have a regular period because that gives us so many benefits for your strength, for your bone density, for growing, and just your general well-being and your health. So missing a period is not okay. So you want to make sure that you do have a regular period each time. All right, and third and final one. So PMS, I don't know if you guys know what that means. It's premenstrual syndrome. So that's all the different symptoms like cravings, stomach cramps and all that. PMS is all in your head. Myth or fact? Awesome. Brilliant. Lots of people are coming through saying myth. Yeah, exactly right. So it is a myth. So PMS is not all in your head. It's your body's response to lots of different chemical changes that are happening within your body. And as you're going through puberty, it can be quite extreme because your bodies are figuring out, you're growing, you're changing, everybody's levels are going to be so different. So yeah, it's important to know that it's not just in your head. It is happening to you and it is okay. And there are certain strategies that you can go through that can hopefully help you manage it and get the most out of it. So as a young girl going through puberty, there are so many things that happen and change. Our body shape changes and everybody's body shape will change at different rates. Sometimes we can grow hair, our shoulders will change, our chest will change, our hips will change. And then sometimes how you feel will change. Have you ever felt 1 week you can feel you've got lots of energy, everything's going great. It's almost like it's like a sunny time, just everything's golden. And then the next day, everything's just pants. You can feel really flat. You can feel really tired. I don't know, a lot of things irritate you or annoy you. And you just find your emotions and your moods can swing and change. Now, going through childhood, your hormones are a little bit low. And then as soon as you hit puberty, this is where males and females go very different. So fun fact, every single person has 7 hormones, 7 different types of hormones. But when we hit puberty, males, their dominant hormone is testosterone. So they develop towards being a male. And as females, we have 2 dominant hormones, progesterone and estrogen. So we still have testosterone and boys still have progesterone and estrogen, but our levels are higher in progesterone and estrogen than the boys. And for us, that causes quite a few different changes. So we're going to go into my slide. Oh, and also as well, if you're able to take notes, great. There is a fair amount of information, so please don't worry if you feel, oh my goodness, there's so much to take in. This is a presentation that I want to give out as often as I can, and never be afraid, oh, I've heard this before, or I've been through it many times. You can never attend this. Like, there's no limit to how often you can attend this, because there might be something that you pick up each time. Let me just double check. I think someone's just put a wee question in. Okay, so any questions that are coming in just now, I will go through at the very end. But yeah, feel free to fire through anything that comes to your mind. So let me just share my screen. Da-da-da. Awesome. All right. So I decided to call this presentation Shout Out to the Girls, because I think it's important for you girls to know that you guys are incredible. What our bodies are going through is amazing. And I think it's really important that we shouldn't be afraid or feel put down by it, because there are so many advantages as an athlete that we can have and utilize. So our menstrual cycle is a cycle of changes. It goes round in a circle. Each person will have a set number of days that their cycle will happen. It's more than just being on your period. So you go through puberty, you're going to find things might be a little bit irregular. So if you start your period, you might find, oh, I started it, and then a couple of months later, oh, I've not had it. That's fine. Just give itself a couple of years. By the time you're maybe 15, 16, you should hopefully have a settled out cycle. So it happens pretty regularly, and you should be able to predict when it'll be. The menstrual cycle as well is a cycle of hormone changes as well. So your peaks and troughs of all the different hormones are going to create lots of different changes within your body. But ultimately, it's a marker of health. So if we have a regular cycle, it's predictable, it happens, we can use that as a sign as our physical health. So if at any point something changes, or you think, oh, that's with what normally happens, that's your body's way of telling you something's not quite right. So our bodies are incredible in that it'll give us little markers in how to identify some of these moments where your body's slightly out with the norm. So it could be maybe you need to work on nutrition a little bit more. Maybe you're a little bit stressed and you need to work on maybe a bit more sleep. Maybe you're overtraining and you're not letting your body recover. All these different things, our body is telling us when things are okay and when things aren't okay. So it's important that we listen to what our body's telling us. So training foundation, being an athlete, there are lots of things we need to consider, whether you're male or female, but really particularly when you're female, because as I say, our menstrual cycle can have a huge impact on this. So nourishing the body. Nourish is through food. It's also through mindful rest as well. So allowing times to de-stress. So nourish the body with really good food. Nourish the head with good rest, things that you enjoy doing, whether it's reading, going to movies, going shopping, whatever it is, nourish the mind and nourish the body. This ultimately will allow your body to be ready and prepared for your training. So this is the baseline foundation. Listen to your body, ensuring that you are listening to what it is saying. If you're tired, do you need more sleep? Do you need more food? Do you need more recovery? So really tune in and be a student of your own body. Listen to what it's telling you, because it's going to tell you lots of different things. Do the work consistently. So that's meaning that if you're going to start making changes, or you're going to start trying different things like different drills in the pool, doing it once isn't really going to cut it. You're going to have to be consistent with it. So if you're going to work on underwater work, you got to work at that underwater work every session that you go to. Consistency is key. So when you're turning up to training, how many of you guys do pre-pool? So making sure that you are being consistent in what you do. So start with your goal, be consistent in achieving that goal or that target each time. Then that's what's going to give you that good baseline for your training. And ultimately it can help you reach to that elite level performance. Recover well. Now, recovering is more than just finishing training, chilling out on the sofa. Recovering is nutrition and hydration, trying to get at least 8 hours of sleep, especially you guys going through puberty. Your body is going through lots of growth and changes, lots of hormones to regulate. So making sure you're supporting it, good food, good sleep, good, even mobility work. So even if you're training hard in the pool, pre-pool and post-pool stretching, Pilates or yoga, just something nice and easy and gentle, so that your body has like a kind of consistent work where it's not just all or nothing. You've got to let it recover. And people prefer physios, some people prefer compression gear, ice baths. There are so many different variations. So you guys have got an advantage of finding out what's going to give you the best recovery. Your awareness of your daily practices, both in and around your training. So if you're going to commit to being a swimmer, it's more than what you do in the pool. It's what you do out with the pool as well. So if you're going in training, as soon as you leave the pool, you're not going to go, right, you know what, I'm going to go and BMX down a really rocky, hilly mountain. because the chances of you getting injured are going to be quite high. So you want to protect yourself as much as possible. So your practices, if you're doing pre and post pool, you've got performance behaviors in the pool, great. But it doesn't stop just being in the pool. Taking that out with the pool as well is going to be just as important. That can even be schoolwork, not leaving things to the last minute. Try and be organized, making sure you're getting on top of it. Do you need to create timetables? So be mindful that all the behaviors that you're instilling is not just in the pool, it's what you do out with the pool as well. And ultimately, train with your cycle. I mean, how often have some of us been dreading having your period during a competition, or knowing that I'm going to be starting my period, or I've just started in training, I'm just going to go to the back of the lane. Train with your cycle, and I'm going to show you how you can do that to maximize the performance and your potential. So how well do we actually know our bodies? We are not small versions of boys, basically. So when I say going through puberty, males have testosterone dominant hormone, we have progesterone and estrogen, and those dominant hormones create differences in our bodies. First one is metabolism. Metabolism is how well we digest our food and how well we process it. So males have a higher metabolic rate than females. I've got 2 younger brothers. My youngest brother could sit and eat 5 pizzas, and he's still 6 foot and weighs barely anything. If I ate 5 pizzas, I know my body would not be happy with me. I'd be bloated. I'd feel really heavy. It's not great. So we are very, very different. So never compare yourself to the food that the boys eat compared to what we eat. It plays a huge role. So it can be affected as well. It can be affected by our genes, our body size, our age. They all play a role in how our body gains and loses muscle mass, and that's all through metabolism. For females, it is designed for endurance. So we store energy a lot more. So we have more of endurance capabilities, whereas for males, they have a very high rate because it's short speed. Back in the sort of prehistoric days, they were the ones going out hunting, getting food, so they needed to eat quick and run. We stayed and protected the family. So it kind of goes to a little bit of that. Hormonal factors, as I mentioned, testosterone is the male lead hormone. This leads to larger bones. So when they develop, they get sort of stronger, thicker bones, taller as well. Protein synthesis as well as higher. So they're going to have a quicker muscle building process. And they generally have larger muscles than girls. For females, it's estrogen. And we basically are a bit shorter in stature. We have a lower sort of total body mass as well. But ultimately, at the minute, it's not really important, but it's crucial for pregnancy, but ultimately regulating our menstrual cycle. So estrogen and progesterone help regulate that menstrual cycle. If any of those hormones are slightly off, that's when we start getting irregular periods. Coming into our skeletal system. I don't know if you can see that there, but they are 2 skeletons, one's male and one female. Can you identify which one is which? So a couple of differences in the skeletal system. Males will have a larger skull, wider shoulders, a shorter torso. So that's from your shoulder to your sort of top part of your hip will be slightly shorter than females, but they'll have longer arms and longer legs. For us girls, we've got a narrow thorax. So that's basically the sort of our girth around our rib cage. So we are slightly narrower, which can impact our lung capacity. So our lung capacity will be slightly different to males, but we also have a wider pelvis. So as we grow and change, we notice that our hips, some girls might get hips that are just set a little bit wider, and ultimately that's all to do with pregnancy. But in swimming terms, it means working on your skills and drills and finding your feel in the water. So a lot of young girls can be really good at breaststroke. As soon as they hit puberty, it can change. And purely it's because your biomechanics have changed. So biomechanics is how we move. So did you know that females and males squat differently? Because we have a larger pelvis, we squat very differently. So if we're squatting differently, that means our kick's going to be different, our pull's going to be different. So we move very differently to boys, but a lot of people assume, oh, we're just similar. We're not similar. We're very, very different. So people that are smart in reading it, personal trainers, maybe some strength and conditioning guys, they might look, and we have to have different sets of drills to manage those biomechanical differences. Muscular system and strength development is different. So males generally have a faster and higher max power output in their muscles. However, for us females, during repeated muscle contractions, so that's like just during lots of movements like squats or even just swimming in general, we are actually more fatigue resistant and we recover a lot quicker. So for us, endurance work works really, really well, which is why girls or females can do a lot more longer distance training than males. So, you know, it kind of goes into that fact that we are built to be a bit more endurance based. That's not to say we can't sprint, we certainly can, but males definitely have that max power output more than what we do. But the fact that we recover quicker, we are slightly smaller in stature, less muscle mass, our recovery capabilities are much better. So we need to look after that and be mindful of it. Neurological control. Now, I quite like this. This is basically how our brain functions and works. So there's a small part of our brain called the hippocampus, which is critical for learning and memory as well. Ours is slightly larger than the males, but it works differently. So we differ in the way that we think. So when we get memories, we use lots of different senses. So like emotions, we recognize faces, we can solve certain problems, and we can, if you play like Where's Wally, we're much better at identifying and spotting where Wally is compared to males. And again, for us, going back to the prehistoric stages, that's our natural instinct for spotting danger. Have you ever lost something? And if you can't find it, you ask your mum. And if your mum can't find it, that's it, it's lost forever. We have a really good recall memory for items and also for conversations as well. So for me, I live with my fiance, Ewan. He can never find his wallet or his keys, but I always know where they are. And same, if he really irritates me, I can also remember certain conversations that we have, even though he might not. And that's purely to do with this hippocampus, which grows and develops by our estrogen and progesterone and a couple of other hormones as well. But again, it just separates it. Males tend to be more logical emotionally as well. So they view things a bit more logically, but they do have a better visual and spatial awareness capabilities compared to us. So again, we've got those slight differences. Thermoregulation, how we regulate body temperature and heat. You know, how often do you see guys walking down in the middle of winter with shorts and t-shirt on, or a jumper on and shorts, and they're fine? Where we can be in like 5 layers of t-shirts and jumpers and a big thick towel and still feel cold. So yeah, our body regulates slightly differently. Core temperature remains the same. It's about 37 degrees, and our core temperature rises with our hormones. So we actually do get a slight increase in our core temperature. I think it's like by 0.3 of a degree just before we're about to start our period. So we can, have you ever had that moment where you're lying in bed and you think, oh my goodness, I'm really hot? Take the covers off, not too cold, put them on, stick an arm out, or you stick a leg out over the top of your covers, you know, all those little things. So we regulate our temperature just that little bit differently. So when it comes to doing sports, like outdoor activities, we need to be mindful of making sure that we keep hydrated, because we can dehydrate quite quickly. Blood volume and circulation. Males being taller and bigger muscle mass, they have more blood volume compared to us. But for us, we need to make sure that our iron stores. So iron can create anemia, which is related to fatigue. And again, it can cause a lot of problems for us. So we need to make sure, again, nutrition-wise, we're staying on top of that, because we want to be able to circulate the blood around our body and support our muscle system when we are working. So ultimately, what is classed as normal? And if you notice, normal is in inverted commas. So it's really important for you girls to identify what is your normal for your menstrual cycle. So a cycle length, so from the day 1, which is the first day that you start your period, to when you finish your period, to then when you restart your period again. So it's that really big cycle from when you start your period to then when you restart it again. So it's between 21 days and 35 days, averaging about 28 days, but it can move around as you go through each month. So that's why it's so important for you to know how long actually is your cycle. Flow length, you can be on your period for 2 days, or you can be up to about 7 days, with an average of being about 5 days. Now, your cycle length shouldn't vary by more than a couple of days either side. So for me, I roughly I'm about 28 days, but there are some months where I can be 32 days, and there are a couple of months where I can be maybe 25 days. Now, when my cycle changes, it's normally because of stress. I actually recently moved house, and my cycle has been all over the shop because moving house is very, very stressful. So that in itself has made a massive impact for me, and also for my training as well. So I've had to manage it a couple of ways, trying to find ways to de-stress, keep my nutrition up and going. But when I was your age, when I was about maybe 14, 15, I actually had a really bad time with my period. I was on my period for 14 days. I was not aware that this was a big red flag. I thought that was normal. And I would have severe cramps, especially when it came to racing. I would finish a race and I could time it 3 minutes after I raced. I had to be hiding in a cubicle or in the toilet, and I'd be curled up in agony. And I didn't realize that that wasn't normal. I thought that was something that I just had to put up with and get through it. But that wasn't normal. And I really wish that I had this information, that I could have reached out to somebody sooner. And yeah, it wasn't great, but I can now identify that and hopefully help you guys through this if you go through something similar like this. So no excessive blood loss or severe symptoms. So you're going to get symptoms, but your symptoms shouldn't debilitate you. They shouldn't stop you from being able to do daily activities. If they do, again, that's another little red flag that something's not in balance within your body. So about 90% of women report symptoms every cycle. And again, that can be tiredness, it can be difficulty getting to sleep, it can be cravings, stomach cramps, all those sorts of things. And about 93% of athletes say their performance is affected at some point in their cycle. Now, you can read that in two ways. You can read that as 93% of athletes say their performance is effective, as in negatively at some point, or positively, because there are actually some really interesting energy gains you can get within our cycle. So, considerations. There are 4 main things that we can do that can influence and affect our hormone changes. And ultimately, those hormone changes affect and influence our cycle. So you have nutrition and hydration. You hear me talking about that an awful lot. Training load. So how often you are training, and also how frequently you're allowing your body to rest. Recovery and sleep. And other sports and lifestyle commitments. So that could be school, it could be other sporting activities that you like to do out of school clubs, other things like that. Because again, it's another load on your body. So our cycle, as I say, is a marker of health, but also it's a sign because there are stressors happening to our body and we have a threshold. So our body, if it's a regular cycle, is telling us that we are coping or at that threshold point of our stressors being manageable. Soon as things start becoming a little bit erratic, that's a sign that our body isn't coping with the stressors. So these 4 things, if you can identify how well you're doing these 4 things, you can influence and affect your cycle. So if you find things are a little bit off, or your symptoms are a wee bit more painful, or they're kind of stopping you from being able to do your activities, take a look at these 4 things and have a look. Are they the best that you can possibly do? All right, so this fun little graph, you might look at that and think, what on earth is this? So the 2 main lines I want you to look at, if you're able to see it, is the blue line. This blue line is your estrogen level. And then the pink line here, so you see pink is kind of down, down, down. And then after 14 days, roughly, it then spikes and then it comes back down. That is your progesterone. So what we can do is within our cycle is split it up into 4 different stages. So we can prepare our body for this stage here, which is phase 1, which is when we are on our period. Phase 2, which is when we have this estrogen spike. Phase 3, which is when we've gone through a bit of a dip with our estrogen, but ultimately it's quite a high hormone phase because both estrogen and progesterone are quite high. And then phase 4, when it comes back down. So each of these 4 things creates different changes within our body. So this is why I was saying we can use this as our superpower, because if we can manage our each of these 4 hormonal changes, we can still get the most and actually the best out of our training. So phase 1, this is known as our menstruation phase. So we are in our period. So it's low hormones. So low hormones also means low mood. So we have very little hormones kicking about in our body. If anything, our testosterone levels are actually higher. So we're very similar to males in this sense. We've got low estrogen, low progesterone, and our testosterone, although not as high as the boys, is a little bit higher. So ironically, if you're doing strength and conditioning, you can actually be pretty strong and actually get some muscle development in this phase. But ultimately, again, it can really affect our mood. It's also associated with the inflammatory response, and this travels around our body through the blood. So basically, it causes a lot of symptoms. So we can get cramping, you can feel like you're swelling up a little bit, you can feel hot, you can feel, as I say, just generally moody. It's not the nicest place to feel, but these are all normal things to feel. Also, a fun fact, our white blood cell count is at its lowest. Have you ever noted you pick up more colds, or you might find you get more ill when you're actually on your period? This is because our white blood cell count is at its lowest, meaning we're more susceptible to picking up any bugs or viruses. And also, if we happen to have a bug or a virus in our system, that's the opportunity that it hits us as well. So you can be hit with a double whammy. So making sure you're staying on top of good hygiene, good nutrition, you can help support your body not suffer through any colds or flus or anything that you've kind of picked up as well. Mental function as well. We actually have, ironically, really good coordination in this phase. So if you're doing any agility drills, so this is for maybe hand-eye coordination sports, picking up new drills in this phase, or even in swimming, doing drills in this phase is actually really good for you because you're going to have a heightened sense of awareness where your body is in the water. You also should use your swimming to help you feel good, because we all get, as I say, that hormonal boost when we swim, serotonin and dopamine. So this is a bit of a more of a biology session for you guys. And serotonin and dopamine is our feel-good hormones. There are a couple of things that can influence it. Food, crisps and chocolate. They give us a short, sharp boost of serotonin and dopamine. They make us feel happy in that short moment of time. But exercise can do that as well. So never underestimate the power of actually being able to go for a swim. You can still do really tough training sessions. You can do VO2s, you can do threshold, but it just will feel that little bit harder when you try and do them. So be mindful that if you are going to exercise, try and be kind to yourself, okay? If you're struggling to hit the times, it's not because that you're a bad swimmer or not doing well. It's just because that's what your body's having to cope with. There's a lot going on in your body when you're on your period. So you can still do VO2, still do threshold, but just be kind to yourself. Don't have huge expectations with your time. It will feel harder, but ultimately our pain tolerance is actually higher. So you might find some people actually perform really well doing VO2s and threshold work in this phase as well. So never underestimate your ability to still train and train really well when you're on your period. Pre-pool and warm-ups is so important here as well. Because there is a lot of inflammation in our body, we are more at risk of injury in this phase as well, especially around your knees. So our ACL ligament around our knees, footballers tend to get a lot of issues with this, but they have a lot of laxity. So the ligaments around it become quite slack and you can pick up a lot of injuries. So if you're a breaststroker, please keep on top of your warm-ups. Let your body warm up enough so that you can manage doing breaststroke work, because that's going to be your biggest factor if you pick up an injury. It's not ideal, especially at your age. And then nutrition. Antioxidants and anti-inflammatory in foods are really, really good. So antioxidants, best way to describe it, foods that help your immune system. Antioxidants are really complicated. Even I struggle to understand them. But for me, it's just about helping support your immune system. Anti-inflammatory foods, so that's not your paracetamol or ibuprofen or aspirin and all that. It's looking at cherries, like Cherry Active. Cherries are a great natural source of anti-inflammatory foods. Blueberries are a great source of antioxidants as well. Fish oil as well, so having salmon or cod, not fish and chips, but fresh fish are really, really good sources of omega-3, which helps reduce inflammation. Restoring your iron stores as well. Remember I talked about your blood levels. Iron is really key to support the oxygen supply through to our muscles. So if we don't have enough iron, we're going to feel tired more easily. So spinach, dark leafy greens, they are going to really help. Again, I've got a couple of slides at the end that have some snack ideas if anybody's interested in them. So it's really important to bring your A game when it comes to your nutrition in this phase. Be mindful, we do have cravings, as I say, for chocolate, ice cream, crisps. I'm not saying you can't have them, but just be mindful that if you do have them, all we're feeding is that low mood to get that serotonin and dopamine hit. And what happens after that is it actually increases your inflammation. So you will feel a lot worse afterwards. So in the long run, those types of foods, whilst they might help you feel good in the short term, long term, not so good. So trying to find different foods or alternatives so that you can satisfy that craving, but then not have that physical effect of being like, oh, I feel 10 times worse. So, alternating sugary foods with maybe dried fruit, crisps with maybe popcorn or something that gives you that crunch. And again, chocolate, dark chocolate, if you're going to go for chocolate, darker chocolate has greater iron intake and less sugar in it as well. And that's not going to make your tummy feel more bloated or more tender as well. So phase 2, so this is where estrogen is at our highest. So this is known as our feel-good phase or our bulletproof phase. You might notice a huge increase in your energy levels. And because of that, we might also feel a decrease in our appetites. We're not going to feel as hungry in this phase. So again, if you're training particularly hard, make sure that you are still eating because it's so important to keep that recovery going. So just because you don't feel hungry, don't skip out on the foods required to ensure that you're going to get good nutrition and good recovery from it. Training, this is the best time to do personal best in the gym, to really work hard. You're going to feel that you're probably going to, as I say, it's your bulletproof phase. You probably might find you might get some good PBs in this phase. But yeah, it's ultimately the best time to train. Your recovery is going to be at its best here. So you're going to recover faster, but that doesn't mean, oh, just my body's just going to recover faster on its own. Still get good sleep, still eat well, and still do swim down and all that. Make sure that you are still helping your body get through it. And then nutrition, again, just keep your carbohydrates and protein going. Again, you want to rebuild, get the gains. As you might hear people say, you want to, if you do a really good VO2 max set, support it with your glycogen and carbohydrate and protein intake. Keep your nutrition maybe similar to menstruation phase. So phase 1, good fruit and veg, keep on top of like your iron intake as well, aid recovery, good sources of collagen and vitamin C. Collagen is found in like protein. So like your meats or nuts. And that's just going to allow your muscle repair to be better because ultimately when we train hard, our muscles do break or tear a little bit, and it's important to repair them so that they can be better, faster, and stronger. Vitamin C, again, you might have picked up a cold in your phase 1, so just keeping on top of your immune system. Nice, healthy, balanced diet will be key. Phase 3, so when progesterone comes in, things start changing a little bit more. We've had a wee dip in our estrogen levels, and this is where we might start feeling a little bit of cramping. So this is where after ovulation happens, where our body releases an egg, and we might find suddenly we get a sharp cramp in our left side or on our right side. That's normal, but as progesterone starts increasing, it can do a couple of little things. Breathing and heart rate might increase. So if you're taking your heart rate in the morning, you might find it's going to be a little bit higher, or even in training as well, it might be easier to reach maximal heart rate. With breathing more, we're going to be expelling a little bit more water. So we're going to get a little bit more dehydrated more quickly. So hydration is so key in training, or if you don't like drinking in training, after training as well, making sure that you do stay hydrated. We do have a reduced ability to sweat, so we're going to feel hotter quicker. And because of that, if we don't sweat as much, we're just going to overheat a little bit more. That's more for people that are maybe running out in the heat, running outside, or doing any activity outside. So if you're doing land training, just being mindful, you're probably going to feel quite hot and bothered and just a little bit flat. So keep hydrated, keep your body cool. We also have better verbal processing. So when you're given an instruction, you're going to be able to process it a little bit better. So your ability to listen in this phase should be really good. Training, We call it the consolidation phase, meaning just maintain what you're doing. If your training is hard in phase 2, you can do the same in phase 3. You're still going to feel good. You're still going to have that bulletproof phase. We are, however, more likely to get a bit distracted. So we might find we're a bit more chatty, maybe a little bit more, ooh, what's over here sort of thing. So just be mindful. And again, if there's any coaches on here, be mindful that it's not them being disrespectful. This sometimes is a bit of a thing. Some people are more prone to it than others, but just gentle nudges or reminders to keep them focused and get on with the task at hand. Again, your recovery is going to be good in this phase as well. Fuel your training. So you want to maintain your energy. So if you find that maybe late afternoon, you just feel really flat, really sluggish, it's a sign that you've not maybe taken on enough fuel to for your body to cope with for that day. So lethargy, tiredness, fatigue, sometimes can be maybe we're not consuming enough food to support our body to train hard. Again, protein intake, making sure that we've got good meat, chicken, beef, pork, turkey, fish as well, just to ensure that we're getting our muscles recovered enough. And hydration, keeping hydrated as much as you can, especially in school as well. I don't know what the rules are with being in school, but keeping on top of that. Phase 4, the last phase. So this is when our hormones drop. So they are going down. And what this does is a chain reaction of quite a few things. So the decline in hormones, this means that our appetite suddenly picks up. So we suddenly get a lot of cravings. For me, my biggest craving is icing sugar, or I just crave sugar an awful lot. So I have to find ways to try and not cave into that. We're going to get PMS, premenstrual cycle symptoms, or PMDD, which is premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. So these are more severe. Inflammation happens as well. And again, increased dehydration. So staying on top of all these things. Training is going to benefit your body really well. It's going to keep the blood flowing, keep the hormones, even though they're declining, they're going to help settle out just a little bit more, but you're going to feel better after you've trained, even if it's just a light, easy walk, an easy aerobic session. But please use your swimming to help you through this phase, because if you sit and do nothing, I can guarantee you feel 10 times worse. Meditative work, like Pilates or yoga as well, because you can feel a bit more stressed out in this phase. Little things can bother you and irritate you and stress you out. So mindfulness is really important. Just keep an eye on it. And again, your recovery rate is going to feel a little bit slower. So nutrition, right diet is so important. This is the phase, if you can avoid takeaways, if you can avoid fast foods, high sugary, high salt foods. Because all that's going to do is just increase that inflammation and make things feel just a little bit rubbish. All right, so these are some of the symptoms we can get. Some of you may have all of them. Some of you may only have one of them. Some of you may have none of them, and that's fine. But just goes to highlight some of the stuff that we can go through and feel. And there's an awful lot, as you can tell, because there's a big slide here, and the slide does get filled. And it's not pleasant, and that's why I'm saying we are incredible. We can still do what we normally do, whilst maintaining sometimes all of these different types of symptoms. So there are 3 main symptoms that we can get: stomach cramps, changes in mood, and fatigue. They're the main 3 that we can get for the PMS symptoms. Not always pleasant, but it's just to highlight this is normal. This is what we can go through. So my top tips: how do we manage our cycle? These are the 6 things. So I'm going to briefly touch upon each of them. And you can just practice. There's a lot to, as I say, it's a lot to think about. So just maybe pick one if you want to, and just try it and see. The biggest one would be tracking. So how do we track our cycle? How do we know when we're in phase 1, phase 3, phase 4, and all that? So I use an app called Fitter Women. There are other apps out there. I think there's Wild AI. There's a couple of others. Apologies, off the top of my head, I can't remember what they are. I prefer Fitter Women. It's a free app. Coaches, there is actually a coaching app where if you have a couple of girls who are on Fitter Women, you can sync up with theirs, and basically you can find out what phase that they're in. So if you're writing different training sessions, it can help you manage that as well. But Fitter Women allows you to basically keeps you informed. Phase cards tells you exactly what your body's going through. Nutrition, the types of nutrition you should be focusing on for each of the different phases. And the little calendar as well, it tells you when you should be starting your cycle. Might take you a couple of cycles to find out what your rhythm and your pattern is. But again, it's so important to record it. You don't have to use an app. You can use pen and paper or a diary. But I think it's so important that we do keep on top of recording when our cycle is. Because if where it becomes out of sync, or you find, you know what, I'm actually not having my period for like 2-3 months, that's a big red flag. And it's really important for you to either seek a doctor, speak to a coach, speak to a health professional, just to find out that everything is okay with your body. Same with if you're having your period and it's longer than 7 days. Again, another little red flag. So it's just to help you stay healthy for just for you to get the most out of your swimming and the most out of life as well. Another reason why I like Fitter Women is that they got some great recipes as well, or ideas for foods and snacks. Preparation. So preparing yourself with how to deal and manage when you're on your period. There are lots of different products out there. We have tampons, we've got sanitary pads, you've got moon cups, there are period pants as well. And I think there are period pants that are water-based. So like they're like bikini bottoms that you can put underneath your swimsuit, and it acts just like a pad. So you don't have to wear a tampon or a moon cup. So it's whatever you feel comfortable with. I know that Scotland, I think, was the first country in the world to provide free sanitary products, which I feel hugely proud of, and it's amazing. So leisure centres, schools, universities. So if you ever get caught short, there are products there that can tide you over until you're able to feel a bit more settled with whatever product you need. It wouldn't be a bad thing as well as swimmers to maybe have spares in your bag, making sure that they're in a waterproof area in your bag. For your teammates, I think we do need to support one another as young women, and I think it's important that we shouldn't feel ashamed or make others feel ashamed for being on their period, because if you get caught out, it's not fun. And I'll be honest, I got caught out yesterday, and the only place nearby was a golfing house, and they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing. So I had to walk over to a co-op to get some. So yeah, making sure that, if I had a friend or someone nearby, they could just borrow a pad or borrow a tampon, not borrow, use. And it would just be really helpful. So I do think it's important that we do support one another. But there are lots of different products out there. So don't be afraid to either research online, try some of them out, or just ask around and see. So nutrition. Nutrition's obviously another completely different topic. Well, not different, it's a big topic. So I won't go too much into it because there is so many different bits to it. But these are kind of the top little bits as to why nutrition, I think, is so important. For fuel and recovery, nutrition provides energy for performance and training, but it also plays a role in your recovery response. The sooner you can get food into your body after a really tough training session, the better your body's going to respond to recovery. Imagine it like an oven. Have an oven on at full blast, and as soon as you turn it off, it stays quite warm. But maybe after like 20-30 minutes, the oven's probably gone cold. That's like your stomach. So as soon as you finish your tough training session, you've got about a 20-30 minute window for you to consume your food, for your body to basically cook it and use it as recovery. After that fact, it's not as quick a response. Bone health, another reason why having our regular cycle is so important. Weight bearing and strength exercise coupled with key nutrients like calcium and vitamin D is essential for optimum bone health. So reducing frequency of breaking your leg or breaking your arm or bone fractures. The hormones that we have naturally from our cycle ensures us that bone density is there. But yeah, calcium and vitamin D, very, very important. Training consistency. You want to be able to do tough training sessions back to back, or making sure you can do a full week's worth without missing training. Maintaining consistency in your training is ultimately what results in improved performance, and nutrition plays a huge role in this. Mood and motivation as well. Inadequate recovery alongside with low nutritional intakes can influence your mood and motivation to perform and train. Also helps prevent injury and illness. Correct nutrition choices can reduce the potential risk of injury and illness, which can hinder performance and your training. And ultimately, our menstrual cycle. PMS symptoms can be influenced by what we eat. This in turn can affect our experience with our cycle and sometimes our mood, which then can affect our training. So it's all a big cycle. Sleep. So we want to try and get a minimum of 8 hours of sleep. Anything less than that, we're going to affect our hormones. They're going to be a little bit out of sync. going to affect our recovery, and we actually increase our risk of injury by something like 10% if we're less than 6 hours or 7 hours of sleep. So sleep is so important, and especially when you're coming into phase 4 and phase 1, sleep can be interrupted because we're going to feel really hot. So if you're able to nap, great. If not, then just making sure going to bed is really key. So keeping cool. Our body drops off to sleep when our core temperature drops. So you can trick your body. If you're feeling that I'm too hot, have a hot bath or hot shower. That's going to increase and actually make you feel hotter. But when you go into bed, that cooling down process of your body helps you drift off to sleep. Fresh bedding. How often do we feel like a great night's sleep after our mum or dad's made our bed? Or if you make your bed as well, that's also fine. But yeah, fresh bed sheets. Sleep hygiene is really, really important. Try and avoid distractions. Screen time. Screens produce what's called blue light. Blue light tricks our brain into thinking it's daylight. So if you can, try and avoid looking at your phone or TV 20 to 30 minutes before bed. It's very, very difficult. Maybe try reading a book. And I say a book, not a Kindle, because again, a Kindle also emits blue light. I know it's very tricky, but again, phones can really impact our ability to fall asleep. Routine. Try and have a routine the same each night, right? You get ready for bed, I don't know, maybe like 8:39 or whatever it is, and try and keep it consistent each night. Obviously, it depends on your routine and family patterns. Find ways to de-stress. Nothing worse than getting stressed out knowing I need 8 hours sleep. The more you stress, the less likely you are to fall asleep. So listen to music, enjoy a calming shower or bath, or maybe do nighttime yoga or Pilates, calm your breathing down. Lavender scent as well can also help. And again, different types of foods. Try and avoid food that's high in caffeine, or if you drink tea or coffee, try and avoid having it after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sugary foods or anything like that. That can all impact how you sleep. Education. I've got a couple more slides and then that's us done, but educate yourself as much as you can. Be curious. There are a couple of social media posts. These are some of the ones that I quite like that I follow on both Instagram and Twitter. Again, they just provide information to find out how you work and for you to understand you. There are some books. Really love Period Power, really informative, and Roar. Roar's great. Roar, especially for the coaches as well. It's about training the athlete at all stages, from menstrual cycle, pregnancy, perimenopause, what you can and can't do, or how to support your body to get it through and to get the most out of your body. And again, different podcasts. Really recommend female athlete podcasts. So if you're going out for a walk, to have a little listen to it. They've got lots of good talks going on and discussion points. And again, lots of really informative research and information. And discussion. Do not be afraid to chat with your friends, family, or support one another to maybe somebody who wants to have a chat. The more you can talk about it, the more we can hopefully be a bit more comfortable with the topic. And ultimately, it's about helping and supporting one another. But be mindful. Medals and trophies and records have been won and broken at all times during the menstrual cycle. Paula Radcliffe broke her world record when she was on her period. I actually worked really closely with Alison Schmidt with Fitter Women, and she won't mind me saying this, but she was on her period during Tokyo. So they've got a plan and a strategy, and she came away with an Olympic silver medal with the girls relay team. So you can still perform both in training and in competition at any phase and stage. It's all about that preparation and what you're prepared to do to support your body. Huge thank you to Orico and Fitter Women. I've been working with them for the last couple of years, and they've helped me kind of build this presentation. And I've got these slides. I will send them over to Jamie, I think, to maybe distribute, or to somebody to distribute out. Let me come out of the thing. And everybody's still awake, which is fab. So yeah, there's a couple of little snacks and smoothie ideas which I can send through if anybody's really keen for them. I know that oh, my video's turned off. Where's that gone? There we go. I think there was a question that I had at the start. So I'm going to quickly go through this question. Is it okay when you first start your period for it to be irregular, even when doing lots of exercise? So yeah, so the youngest I think we can start our periods maybe like 8 or 9. And the latest that we should start our period is about 15. So if we're 16 and we haven't started, it's important to be able to go and see a doctor, because there are certain conditions that can be tied to that. But if you start your period, it might take a year or two for it to settle out. So if you've just started, don't panic if all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm training really hard, but I'm maybe not as regular, it does take a little while. Puberty, your hormones will be fluctuating a lot. Some days, some months, your hormones are going to be really, really high. Other months it might be quite low. So it will be irregular for a couple of months to a year maybe. So that's why it's important to track it, because then as soon as you start noticing it settle out, that's when you know, right, this is my cycle and this is what it's going to be. But yeah, don't panic if once you first start, it is irregular for a little bit. But it should be settled out by the time you're 15. Awesome. But yeah, there's a lot of information there. So I do apologize if everyone's just like, you might have picked up one thing. If you can pick up just one thing from that, then great. You don't have to pick up everything. As I say, it's a presentation that if you're able to attend as often as you can, you're going to learn little bits, what works for you. Some girls have asked me questions on phase 2. So immediately after they've had their period, why do I feel really tired? Because I've just said, this is your bulletproof phase. You're going to feel amazing. The reason that you might feel tired straight after your period is you've not prepared your body nutritionally during your period. So your body's had to work so hard. And then once it's not on its period, it's almost going, oh, okay. So that's why it's important to track it, support it, through the different apps that can give you different nutritional ideas, snacks, recovery as well. So you can still do your normal training, but just support it with the other bits around it. So that's why we can hopefully use our cycle as that superpower, because ultimately we cannot change our competition schedule. We cannot change when North Districts or West Districts or East Districts is going to be. So what we do is, okay, if I know I'm going to be on my period at this competition, that's why it's important to track, because you might be able to see, I'm going to be phase 4 at this meet, or I'm going to be phase 1. What do I need to do in this phase? Right, I need to work on antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, keep the carbohydrates going, so that when you go to those competitions, even though it might feel quite tough and challenging, you can still get the most out of it. So yes, I've noticed actually there's a couple of more questions coming through. Okie doke. So how do you deal with motivation both on and off your period? So motivation can be very low when you're on your period. Hormones are at their lowest. That's completely normal. So that's why it's important to maybe have like a little hobby or something to distract you. Find like what I call a pick-me-up. Sounds really straightforward, but it could generally be sitting and watching a movie. For me at the minute, it's doing dog training with Poppy. So for me, that's kind of my pick-me-up, but it changes. There was another time where I enjoyed coloring in. I've got like a couple of coloring in books where I just sit and doodle away. So find a little something that allows you to just relax, to just enjoy your own time. You don't have to fill it with, I have to go and see friends, or I have to do this and that. Do something for you. Do something that makes you feel happy. I can't tell you what that is. Only you can figure that out. Could be gaming. It could be music. Could be singing in the shower. Find a little something that makes you happy and enjoy those little moments. So if you do feel you've got a bit of a dip in your motivation, you can go and try those little things out to help boost that up. And even when you're off your period as well. For me, I love music. I love listening to music. So I will listen to music when I'm doing the dishes, or if I'm driving to training and I feel a bit flat, get a good playlist, change it up, find some hype up music. So for me, that's kind of my go-to if my motivation goes. I have braces and I find it really hard to eat. Awesome. Yeah, that actually is quite a common one as well. So smoothies might be a really good thing for you. Soft foods as well. It is frustrating. I had braces for 3 years, and it's annoying because I used to love apples. I love really hard, crunchy stuff, and I could not have it. I tried, thought, oh, that's fine, I can do it, and I pinged one of the brackets off, which wasn't ideal. So smoothies actually might be a really good thing. But when you're having a smoothie, have a handful of oats in with your smoothie if you've got like a blender at home, because that is going to give you that carbohydrate boost, because a lot of people associate smoothies with weight loss. You can still use smoothies to maintain your snacks, but just keep your food intake really soft. As I say, that app Fitter Women's got a lot of different recipe ideas, so you can maybe have a little try and see if there's anything there that you think might be appealing, that might be able for you to eat with your braces. But I do feel for you, it is hard, but there are ways around it. As I say, just be brave, try, and make sure it's not hard stuff, because I don't want you damaging your braces. But for you, it's going to be really important to find the right foods that you like, and that are easy for you to eat. So it's going to take a wee bit of research for you. We know some fab questions. But no, hopefully that was informative, and hopefully I can see you guys again. And if we do, because I'd love to be able to run this workshop in person, be a little bit longer, but we'd probably throw in maybe a couple more sort of kind of interactive bits as well, because as I say, there's a lot of information to just read off slides and it can go over your heads. But I think the key things to take away is tracking it. So if you have started, track your cycle. Even if you haven't started, download one of the tracking apps like Fitter Women or Wild AI. Have a little look. There are a couple of websites. I think there's one, Period of the Period, as well. And just research little bits like that. And you might find something that you will connect with, that you work with. And don't be afraid of it. As I say, use it as our superpower. We have the ability to, have high pain tolerance, so that we can still work incredibly hard. We have the ability to have a huge amount of energy when we're in phase 2. And even when we're, racing on our periods, we can still do a lot of things. So don't ever feel put out or put down by being on our period, and ultimately support one another as well. But no, thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank
you very much, Hannah. It was, no, like you said, lots of information there. Fantastic stuff. And just to add on, we're big supporters of Fitter Women. Our senior athletes use that app, and we coaches use it too. So we're big fans of that where we coach. And I hope everyone had plenty they took away from that. I could see lots of furious note taking, people with heads down and pens in hands. So it's good to see you all here doing that and taking it forward and using your superpowers going forward as you progress through the season. And we'll hopefully see you again on calls, and then, as Hannah said, in person, which would be even better. So thanks for coming on, guys. I'm just going to hand over to Jackie here so she can wrap up for us. Make sure when we finish that you say thank you to Hannah for taking her time this morning, and I'll see you again soon. Jackie, you can
wrap up. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I've just joined Jamie in thanking Hannah. That was very informative. I'm sorry, I probably was taking a few phone calls and stuff while on certain messages of people having problems with other workshops. But I have to say, as a mum of a former swimmer, there's lots there that I wish I had known and that she had known and that had been able to help her. But she isn't swimming anymore. So, but I hope you have found that all very, very informative. Hannah, you spoke about some slides there that you would share. If you send them to me, then girls, I will make sure that they are sent out to you. I do have everybody's email address from Scottish Swimming, even if you're not part of the West District, which is where I'm from, and I'll get those out to you in the next wee while. So just looking ahead to day 2, I think most of you are aware that that's going to be taken online format. I don't have any full details at the moment of just what's going to happen that day, but please, from all of the districts, could you watch out for emails coming in asking you to sign up to whatever is happening. This time, I think there was a few people who did miss the deadline, but conveners were able to help, but you can't always rely that they'll be available to do that. So I strongly suggest that if no emails come in, that by the week beginning the 29th of October, no, sorry, the 25th of October, that you're asking your parents to inquire what's happening or checking spam just to make sure they've not missed it. Okay, so at the beginning of this, I did say to you that we are recording today. It is my understanding that this recording will be posted onto the Scottish Swimming YouTube channel, and as soon as all conveners have the links for that, we'll send that out to you. And I think, it's certainly a workshop that if your parents haven't been able to listen in today, then maybe it's something you could share with them in the future, just to give them some help. I did have a message from one mum who did share the workshop today, and she indeed found that very the morning very informative as well. So I'm sure it's worthwhile sharing with parents. Okay, So thanks, guys, for your attention today. Looking forward to meeting some of you poolside. I know day 3, we're all very, very hopeful we're going to be at the pool. So fingers and toes crossed. And for those of you whom I don't meet, enjoy your next couple of days with the Junior Academy. And we'll hopefully see you all poolside at some point in the future. Okay, thank you very much.